Rango is a nervous, daydreaming chameleon who's always pretending to be someone braver than he feels, and that's where this whole ridiculous, wonderful Western begins. He starts life as a sheltered pet in a glass terrarium, practicing lines and personas for a life he imagines is far bigger than the one he's actually living. Then, in a moment that's equal parts slapstick and fate, his glass world shatters, literally, and he's hurled out into the Mojave. It's a strange, sun-baked place where nothing behaves like it did back home, and Rango's desperate for a story he can belong to. He finds one faster than he expects. After a comic, awkward arrival, Rango blunders into a dusty frontier town called Dirt. Dirt looks ancient and tired. Cracked streets, sun-bleached buildings, and a cast of odd, ornery animals struggling to get by. The town is dying, and not metaphorically. Their water supply is vanishing, and without water, the whole place is falling apart. The townsfolk, a rough-and-tumble ensemble, greet Rango with suspicion, but also a hunger for anything that looks like hope. He meets Beans, a tough, no-nonsense young woman who's clearly the heart of the town, smart, sharp, and not impressed by anyone's bravado. She gives Rango a look that cuts through all his posturing, which, of course, rattles him in the best possible way. Rango's penchant for performance gets him into the one role Dirt can't seem to fill, sheriff. When the real sheriff dies under suspicious circumstances, the town needs a figurehead, someone to stand up and say they'll bring order and answers. Rango, who spends most of the movie improvising courage, bursts forward and fills the role with an enthusiasm that's mostly bluster and a little magic. The townspeople buy it, partly because they want to, partly because hope is a scarce commodity, and he's sworn in. It's ridiculous and brilliant because Rango isn't heroic at first. He's an actor playing heroism, and the film leans into that idea, showing how performance can sometimes turn into real change. As sheriff, Rango starts poking around. He's both funny and surprisingly empathetic in his attempts to do the job. The mystery at the heart of Dirt becomes his obsession. Why is the town running out of water? Who's taking it? The answers lead him through saloons that feel like characters themselves, through dusty alleyways, and into confrontations with the kind of moral ambiguity you don't always expect from an animated comedy. Rango learns to listen, a big step for someone who's relied on rehearsed lines, and in the process, he begins to understand the townsfolk he's been pretending to protect. There's a layer of hard truth under the movie's humor. Water is power, and whoever controls it controls everything. The investigation uncovers corruption and clever theft, and Rango discovers it's not just scavengers stealing a little at a time, it's a systematic squeeze. That discovery forces him to move from acting to figuring things out, which the film stages as both detective work and a kind of personal search. He teams up with Beans more closely, and there's a slow, believable warmth between them. She's not a love interest in the sugary sense. She's practical, wounded, and courageous in her own right, and she pushes Rango to stop performing and start living up to the role he's been given. Tension rises when the stakes are made brutally clear. The town doesn't just need a show of law and order, it needs real leadership to survive. Rango, who spends most of the movie improvising courage, bursts forward and fills the role with an enthusiasm that's mostly bluster and a little magic. The townspeople buy it, partly because they want to, partly because hope is a scarce commodity, and he's sworn in. It's ridiculous and brilliant because Rango isn't heroic at first. He's an actor he's been pretending to be, and he knows it. The movie stages these moments beautifully. Rango has dreamlike sequences that parody classic Western myths, noir monologues where he hears the kind of tough talk he wants to live up to, and flashbacks that blend with fantasy. Those scenes are funny, but they're also the emotional heart of the story. Rango has to learn that being a hero isn't about playing a part. It's about making hard choices, sometimes failing, and then doing the right thing anyway. As Rango digs, he discovers clues that the water's disappearance isn't natural. Pipes have been tampered with, a band of thugs prowls the outskirts, and there's someone benefiting from scarcity. He and Beans get closer during the investigation. Beans is stubborn and brave in ways Rango isn't, which both frustrates and inspires him. She isn't a damsel, she's one of the main moral centers of the town, and Rango's respect for her grows into something sincere. There are tender moments where he genuinely wants to protect her and the town, not just impress them. The threat becomes personal when violent forces start to close in. The town's fragile peace is broken by a menacing rattlesnake with a terrible reputation. He's a classic Western villain, all menace and venom. The snake's presence raises the stakes. This isn't just about stolen water anymore. It's about survival and facing the kind of danger Rango's fantasies used to imagine. The showdown scenes are tense and inventive. They mix cartoonish action with real peril, so you feel the weight of what's at risk. Rango's investigation eventually reveals a conspiracy. Some powerful figures in the area have been hoarding water, diverting it for profit, and using fear to control people. It's a damning commentary on scarcity and power. Rango must confront the fact that he's been playing a part up until now, but if he wants to be more than a fraud, he has to outwit and outlast people who have real resources and real ruthlessness. The film does a great job of making this geopolitical issue feel intimate. It's not just a big idea lesson, it's about the town's children, the animals that crop and feed off the land, and the everyday survival of these characters. There's a part where Rango almost gives up. He's humiliated, doubted himself, and even runs away into the desert. That sequence is crucial because it forces him to reckon with who he really is. Cut off from the town's eyes and the badge that made him feel important, Rango has to face the truth. Courage isn't a costume, and identity isn't a performance you can maintain forever. He looks inward, has a moment of true clarity, and decides to return. His comeback isn't just for show. It's driven by a new sense of responsibility and love for a community that, imperfect as it is, needs him. When he comes back, Rango takes bold risks. He stages a rescue, rallies a few unlikely allies, and confronts the villains. The film builds to a satisfying climax where cleverness replaces bluster. Rango uses what he's learned, empathy, a sense of the town's needs, and actual quick thinking to expose the water thieves and bring the town together. There's real peril in the physical confrontations, and the animations make the tension and humor land equally well. The villains get their comeuppance in a way that feels earned, not cartoonishly easy, and Rango pays a price too, which makes his triumph feel honest. Aside from the main plot, the film is full of small human details that make dirt feel lived in. Side characters have their own quirks, a hapless deputy, a cynical bartender, townsfolk with old grudges. Those moments, a reluctant laugh at a bar, a neighbor's small kindness, help sell the idea that a town can be more than the sum of its problems. The humor is sharp, but never mean-spirited, and the movie balances wit with moments of real tenderness. By the end, Rango has transformed in a believable way. He isn't suddenly invincible or perfect. He's just someone who's chosen to stand up, even when scared. He gains the town's respect because he actually earned it, not because he lied about who he was. Beans and Rango find a kind of mutual respect and tentative affection. The water crisis is addressed in a way that restores hope. The town starts to rebuild both physically and morally. The conclusion feels like a promise. People can change, communities can recover, and heroes can be ordinary folks who do the hard thing. There's a lot that makes Rango work beyond the plot beats. It's visually inventive, full of clever references to Westerns, and it uses animal characters to cut through human pretensions. The voice acting gives the characters real texture, and the score leans into that classic Western vibe while staying playful. Most importantly, the film is about identity and storytelling. Rango learns that the stories you tell about yourself can inspire you, but they don't replace the actual work of being brave and compassionate. That moral lands without being preachy because it's wrapped in funny, surprising, and occasionally touching moments. If you've ever felt like you were pretending to be someone else to fit in or to feel important, Rango's journey hits home. It's a movie that's silly and thoughtful at the same time, with enough action to keep you entertained and enough heart to leave you satisfied. By the time the dust settles, you're rooting for that little green guy who stared into his own reflection and decided he'd be someone worth believing in. Subscribe for more videos.